toe here today. It's Relationship Unscripted with that dude, Coach Ken.
If you're gonna leave, leave. So
say no more.
I said, so you leave me now. And because I'm waiting all this time, I'm like, the ring is coming, the ring is coming. I don't want to leave, but I done sold all my stuff. What I'm finna do? You know what I mean? He says, you got more delays in the airport. We out.
Man, you were committed to the script.
Yes, he came over. I'm like putting myself in the car a whole time. I'm like, this isn't very real. He put everything in the car. And in that moment, I'm like, is this what we're doing? Is a Tyler Perry moment. It's a Tyler Perry moment.
Right.
That's what we gonna do? Oh, okay. I'm not the one you want to do that with. I'm going to Las Vegas.
Okay. So I'm going to post her videos, Aisha's videos, in order as she's telling this story. So I want you all to just listen to all four of them. I think it's a total of four. Mm-hmm. I mean, just a tremendous story. Now, I want to ask you this question. Short answer. In hindsight, do you think at that moment you overplayed your hand?
No.
Okay.
Not at all.
Now, why do you say no?
I say no because something bold needed to happen. And it needed to happen for me because I didn't believe me. Mm-hmm. I didn't believe that I would leave. I didn't believe it. And I was more focused on him than I was on me. And so my decision and the boldness of my decision put my life into a very different trajectory that I'm extremely proud of. And so out stepping into that moment and really bossing up and standing by myself, saying, this is what I said. I'm going to put 10 fingers, 10 toes. I said what I said. That's a moment that, I mean, it's a shining glory. And so, it was a mistake, right? But it was a mistake that the outcome was amazing. It was amazing. So how could it be a mistake when it's just life?
Right. Okay. Now, one of the things that you and I had talked about in our pre-call that I said that as I listened to you, my question for you would be, you had some options, meaning if you didn't get married, it wouldn't be the end of the world because you still had another part of your life that was still jumping off. Everything was moving up, which was kind of what was facilitating the need to be married because I'm on this upward trajectory. So I'm good. Mm-hmm. Marrying you would make it a little bit better, but I'm good.
Yeah.
Now, what do you say to the person that doesn't have options and she's faced with ultimatums? What do we say to that person?
The most important thing in your life is for you to create avenues for success for yourself. So as women, when there's a financial dependence on anyone, you lost. Mm-hmm. You got an L before you even started the game.
Right.
And so the idea of relying on someone for your well-being is deeply problematic. And for your emotional well-being is deeply problematic as well. And so the idea isn't, do I respond to this ultimatum? The idea is, how do I create sustainability in my life that I can take care of me no matter what anyone says it does? That's the number one question. Someone giving you an ultimatum is secondary to you making sure you can take care of yourself, period. So people can say whatever they want. If you can't take care of yourself, you're going to lose anyway.
Agreed. I think there's a degree of perceived power when people give ultimatum. Mm-hmm. Whether that power is real or not, it is definitely perceived. I have some sort of power that is going to ultimately usher into the moment what I am looking for. Now, the only reason I asked, did you overplay your hand? And because he too had options, yes. Right? And so in that moment, as I asked earlier, you said there was no way on earth he would have said no. And that's why I asked that question. Do you think you overplayed it? Because that wasn't even a thought, right? Again, are you a space player? I know you're from Jersey. Shout to Jersey. Are you a space player? Please don't tell me you're not a space player. Please don't.
Okay, so I didn't know this was going to be one of the questions because this is one of those things that if you can't do it, you never admit that to Black people. You just be like, oh, sometimes I play, but I like to cook. Like, you can't tell a bunch of Black folks you don't know how to play spades. I know the general concepts, but do I play? No.
Okay. All right. Because, spades is a serious thing in the culture.
I know.
But I digress. What I was going to throw out there is like when you're playing spades, there's an instance where you can overplay your hand. You think you got 5 in your hand between you and your partner. Yeah. And you're like, no, I think we can stretch this to 7. And then y'all get set. And y'all realize y'all didn't even have the 4 needed required books. Yeah. And that's what I mean by overplaying a hand, just not reading the room, being able to say, what are the possibilities? Is this feasible? And again, I want to be very clear, everyone. She's in her middle 20s at this time.
Yeah, 26.
So, right. So it's like, and I want to put this into perspective. So I believe as a coach that between 18 and 25 is when we make the bulk of the mistakes that we're going to make in life. Meaning we go to school, drop out, mess up credit, get in a space, get evicted, run up credit card debt, all that sort of stuff between 18 and 25. Then 25, we start to like, okay, we're trying to recover from it. And then we get to 30 and then we're in another place. But in that 18 to 25, you're out of high school and you're just dropped off into this league of grown people with no rules. And it's like dropping a sheep off in the middle of some wolves and you're just trying to navigate the waters. Young lady coming in, she's ambitious, and I'm sure you held your own, but nobody can expect you at 22, 23, 24 years of age to know what to do in that moment. And I think that's where a lot of people cave to the pressure. Being that young and being able to say, if I don't do what he wants me to do, my whole lifestyle might change. And the answer to that is it might. And you should consider letting it change. Temporary growing pains, as they say. Is there an instance, Aishia, where a ultimatum can be a good thing?
I like the way you put it earlier when you talked about overplaying your hand and how an ultimatum, and you said it's about power. Ultimatum really is a perceived power over another, right? I have power over you, but the boundary is power over me. I have power over me, over my feeling of pressure, and I need to do this now, and this sense of urgency. I have power over that. I don't have power over someone else. And so when my ultimatum was power over him, but in that moment when it was he wasn't going to propose, then my power shifted to me. And in that moment, I stepped into my own personal power. That's the difference. That's the shift. And so that shift has to exist in order for there to be success. Otherwise, then that person has that power over you. You've given up your power when you step into ultimatums because you think you have the power. Because you could have easily be like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to get married. I'm going to give you what you want. And you think you won. You didn't win. You just gave him the upper hand. You didn't win. He just took complete control. So you think you won. You didn't win. You just gave up more of your power. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. 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 I think that in the coaching realm, I've told people that if you find yourself allowing people to set ultimatums in a relationship, you are really establishing some very bad behaviors for that person to start living by, because now that becomes the rule of order. Every time I need to get what I need to get, I'm going to have some degree of emotional outburst to get what I want. And in this case, either you do it or else. So if you're listening to this podcast and that is you, stop it. And if you are one of those people that are on the other end of that ultimatum, you have options. Just think through it. Don't cave to the pressure. Now, as the story goes on, you turn to him and you said, "You're really going to let me go?"
Exactly, verbatim.
Is that when the light bulb came on for you? Like, ish just got real.
I think, and I'm seeing that moment in my mind, like my Honda Accord, my little Chihuahua at the time, my clean drawers in the back of the car, right in the back seat. And I'm seeing his face, just handsome, stoic. Have a safe trip. And, a lot of it was like, it's time for my life to go in a different direction. I've given this idea enough. And so in that moment, that shift, and I was crying. I was crying, but there was something about me that showed up in that moment, and not this is the way your life should be. I stepped out of that in that moment. This is my life. It's going to be the way I want it to be. And that's the power, and that was the shift.
So there's this emotional release as you are driving to Vegas, and I'm certain that it was quite the scene. I can imagine it wasn't one of those little cute church cries. It was one of these straight up ugly cries that we praying our windows is tinted so folks ain't looking in there like, what is going on over there? So I can only imagine the emotional outburst. What was the healing process for you to get to a space where you were in your metamorphosis moving towards bossing up? What was that part like for you? And what emotions did you experience before you hit, that's the last tier, I'm good, bossed up, let's get it? Before you got to that space, what was that healing part for you?
Well, it was a long ride. It was 3 days. And I cried the entire time. Like, I wasn't kikiing. And we weren't having like the Stelma and Louise trip to Las Vegas. Like, I was crying. Like, I was just like, I'm leaving everything. And I'm an East Coast girl. I'm leaving everything I know behind for this city that I can't even really picture what life is like there. Because I had only been on the Strip for a couple of days. I didn't know real people live in Las Vegas. Right. And so I'm driving through the desert, and I'm like, this is where I'm coming to heal, because there's more to this than this situation, right? You don't come to that type of behavior in your life. There's not an underlying pattern. So this is where I'm going to heal. I'm going to heal in Vegas. And this is just my inner voice talking to me. And when I got here, and I struggled so much, I didn't have any money. And I met a bunch of cool people, amazing people. And I had this amazing life. And he called me and he was like, can we try again? And I had been there for maybe 5 months, 6 months at that point. And that was all I had wanted to hear for years. And when he said it, it meant nothing, nothing, because I had a new life and I had what I wanted, and I lived in Vegas and I met all these, you know what I mean? Vegas was Vegas. It was right. 2004. It was it was Vegas. You know what I mean? And so, and I just realized that that's not what I want. And I realized also that we were not compatible. And I see that because I wanted an image. I didn't understand what it took to really be married. I didn't understand that. And it was really clear in the ultimatum in the series, where I can't think of what one of the young women was. She was like, I'm thin, I go to the gym, I'm really pretty, I'm a wife. Like, sis, that's what you think it takes to have a relationship with someone? Going to the gym, being pretty? That's what you think? But my mind wasn't too far from that. Okay. It really wasn't.
As I'm watching the ultimatum, I am noticing, I'm like, it is a whole lot going on with these people. Yeah. And I thought the ultimate mistake, I'm not going to call it a mistake, the ultimate challenge was, we're going to split y'all up for 30 days. We're going to let you go be over here. I'm like, this is going to end so bad. This is nothing can come of this but a train wreck. But again, you got to put some level of entertainment value out there for the people. What was your overall take on that show?
I don't think that it makes sense if a couple is having issues to triangulate. That's what we say in mental health, to bring another person into the situation that is unhealthy, because no one deals with any issue. No one deals with anything. If you bring someone else into it, now we're focusing on that person and what you did with that person. And you saw the reunion, that's all they were talking about. There wasn't like, this is my area of growth. These are my mistakes. This is what I need to do different. This is how I'm challenging myself. This is how I'm growing. There was none of that. The focus was, why didn't you tell me this? And you did that, and you didn't say this. Because that's what triangulation does. It releases each person from responsibility. And now we're focused on this third person. That's what cheating does. That's what anything, you understand what I'm saying? Like, sure. Nothing is being dealt with. And so that's why it's deeply problematic. And it's just for entertainment. But they're real people. So it's actually pretty sad, because they're real people, and they're very young and very impressionable. And you can clearly see that a lot of them have some emotional issues that aren't being addressed.
I am doing this whole her story. I'm giving it to you in parts on purpose, because I don't want to just get you all to the end. Now, back to the story. We're in Vegas now. Yes. 5 months later. Yes. He's gone to Walmart and went to Al 5 and got him a bottle of Get Right. So he's on the phone talking to you, just one syllable short of saying, baby, I made a mistake. So he's there. Yeah. You are like, nah. Here's a question I want to ask you. Was there a degree of fear that said 2% of me might want to do it, The bigger part of me is afraid that I've come so far that if I go back, I may not make it back here. Was fear ever in the equation for you telling him no after he's finally delivered to you the words you've been waiting on?
It wasn't about fear. At that point, it was just being very pragmatic. Like, now I'm all the way across the country and I don't know what this looks like the next time we have a disagreement. Is it something that's going to happen again? Because there was no communication. There was no negotiation. There was no way for us to practice dealing with real life by dealing with this issue in a mature manner. I mean, we both college educated people, but we couldn't figure out how to communicate. Like, what? I don't want a life with a partner where we're pulling teeth every time we disagree. And so there wasn't a lot. I didn't have any reactivity because I had already made my mind. Like, this wasn't it. This isn't the way I want to relate. It's not the type of relationship I want to have.
So as the story goes, she's in Vegas. It's been 5 months. Her phone rings. It's this dude. He's like, hey, I might have didn't, think this through. And she's like, well, can't help you. I'm doing something else. So you're in Vegas now.
Yes.
And I think this was the genesis of the word turned up, because I can only imagine this is part of your healing process. Now it's like I am living la viva loca up in this joint. So I only can imagine Vegas is on all the time. Now you are meeting people. Would you say it was like a year? Was it some months before you got to a spot where you really knew I'm good?
I would say that for me to stop having those moments where I wanted to curse him out, right? Because you can be fine and then you think about something, you're like, you know what? I'm gonna call him and curse him out because he was lying when this happened. You do that back and forth before you're really done. So I would say it was about a year and a half before, and I remember the moment clearly. It was like a year and a half in. I told him I didn't, I'm not going back with you, but we would still talk, like we're friends, right? But we would argue. I would get so mad, like, you did this, and I was taking a plant to the trash. And I said, you know what? Arguing with him is like talking to this dumpster, like yelling at this dumpster. We're arguing points. We're arguing about things that happened 3 years ago. Like, this doesn't go anywhere. This doesn't make any sense. And just in that moment, it was just this release. Like, I'm not doing this anymore. What was said was said. What was done was done. That's it. No more arguing. And that was it. Never argued about a thing again.
So let's wrap up the trip then. So just talk to the people, Aishia, about just some of the things that you've done since then. Because, again, as I said earlier in the podcast, her resume is stellar. Go out there. You can Google her. She has content out there. Again, not only is she a very entertaining voice and person to follow in these different social media platforms, but you're actually going to learn something. And so if you have not had an opportunity to go out there and listen to her, please do. Please do. It would make so much sense for you to do that. Aishia, what are some of the things that you've had an opportunity to do in Vegas, and what are you into now?
So since I wasn't a therapist when I came to Vegas, I have a master's degree in social work. So when I came to Vegas, I did more administrative work. So I worked in the jail. I did a lot of work with, this is interesting, I worked in a lot of nursing homes when I first got here. The nursing homes was lit. You understand what I'm saying? There was a lot going on. It was a lot popping. But that's where the jobs were, and they paid a lot of money. Around 2009, I transitioned to purely clinical one-on-one mental health. I worked in a psych hospital. I ran a program for adolescents that tried to hurt themselves or hurt someone else. I taught at UNLV as an adjunct professor at 34. And I looked young. I look young now, but when I was 34, no one even believed I was the professor. Like, I would be in the making copies and they would tell me I had to leave because that was for staff. Like, it happened to me all the time where I'm trying to prepare for my class. Another professor walks in and is like, students aren't allowed in here. Like, with a little snotty attitude. I'm like, I'm the professor. You know what I mean? There was that element of age and gender and race that you can't be a professor, especially at this age.
How did this looking young thing play well in that other job that you mentioned?
I have a lot of experience working with men. I don't know why people, whenever I talk about men, people are hating, like, you don't know, I'm a professional. I've worked with men primarily. Right. And I worked with men at the jail, and I worked with men with swastikas on their neck.
Right.
And everybody respected me because I respect them. Okay. I didn't take nothing, and I treated everybody fair. Okay. And in jail, like, people listen to hip hop, they don't know what they're talking about. And when they talk about fly me a kite, that's in jail. When you want to talk to someone, it's a communication form. That's what a kite is. And so I'm at work, Miss Aishia, look, fly me a kite, and I'll come back and talk to you. And all men, never had a problem, was never disrespected, ever. I was there. This is the truth. A riot broke out. Do you hear me? I'm in an all men's unit, all psych, just me, easily 70 men. And they start fighting. While I'm standing there, you can't be scared. Number one rule, don't be scared. Don't show you scared, not in that environment. Right. Jersey had to come out. I had to put that meme up on, like, I shout the Jersey. When I tell you, I was shaking, and I was standing there, and one of the inmates was like, you ain't got nothing to worry about. I ain't gonna let nothing happen to you. And I never had no problem. I stood right there and nobody bothered me. I respect people. Right. And to this day, and it's kind of crazy, but I see some of them inmates, they be like, Miss Aishia. Like, that's my therapist. I'm like, calm down. Like, calm down. I saw you in the cell, bro. Like, you're fine. You know what I mean? But in that environment, I worked with all men. Okay. And that's really, and the idea of the way I look, I don't carry it. Right. Right. Like, I don't lead with that. I want you to hear what I'm saying, and I want you to feel the way I'm working with you. And I want you to be distracted by this, because mama's fine, right? I know that. Okay. I know that. I see you. And we all, I mean, it is what it is, right? Right. I didn't do nothing. This is my mama then. I didn't do nothing. I don't want that to be the focus. And because I don't lead with it, it never was. That's what jumped out at me, is that she is so everyday. You know, she could be your cousin, your sister, your homeboy's sister, or somebody that you know, very relatable. And I think that is something that's missing not only in the healthcare industry as far as mental health professionals and things such as that, but in coaching as well. It's people that are just not relatable to some of the things that you have to help people to grasp and understand. Let me go ahead and wrap the call and wrap the podcast, I should say. And I really, really, really appreciate you making time to talk to us. A couple of things. What is it that you want to leave us with from a thought process? It doesn't necessarily have to be anything dealing with ultimatums, just what's on your mind. Edify us, help us elevate. What's on your mind as far as just, hey, here's a nugget I want to give your listeners. What I've been thinking about and working with my clients on is this basic principle that you only have one relationship in life, and that's the relationship you have with yourself. Everything else is just a reflection of that. And so however you feel about you, you're going to see that in every relationship you have in your life, authentically. I'm not talking about, oh, buy me a bag because I need to have a bag. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about how you really feel about yourself at night when you lay down, what you really see when you look in the mirror, because that's going to be reflected back to you in every relationship that you have, every work, every relationship. So how do you really feel about yourself? Honestly, because that's the reflection. That's the reflection. And when I think about me and think about my ex, this handsome person, I'm up here and we're going to be Barack and Michelle. That's fake, because we couldn't even communicate. And so worrying about how things look on the external, but on the internal, we can't even sit and talk. Aishia, how can the people get in touch with you? How can the people follow you on these different social media platforms? I follow you on TikTok at My Therapist Life. I'm going to put that into the description, guys, so don't worry about that. But how can people get in touch with you, follow you? I know you're working on a self-help book. I'm going to get that book, and then I'm actually going to do my best to get you to sign it. I need to start working on that right now, but I'm going to try to get you to sign a book so I can say I know her, because I'm telling y'all, she's something like a big deal. So that being said, the self-help book, and how can people get in touch with you? So it's info. Anyone can email me. I respond to my emails. Like, you're not just going to send an email to a void. Like, I'm going to respond to it. So it's info@AishiaGrevenberg.com. It's the easiest way. Okay. And as far as the self-help book, how far are we out? So I'm actually wanting to be more inclusive. And so I'm going to release smaller portions of it so that it's more accessible, right? And so I'm chopping it up so that people can get more and interact more with the content gradually. And that's going to help me create the final project. So we're close.
Okay. Now I want to also send a shout out to Lyric, who is your cat, right?
Okay. Yes.
And then Sage. Now, what kind of dog is Sage?
Sage is a Maltipoo, and her and I are going back home to Mexico tomorrow. So we're all getting ready to travel. We're getting all of our stuff together. So Sage is a Maltipoo, and Lyric is a cat I got in Walmart parking lot 17 years ago.
Okay. Well, again, it's been my pleasure getting an opportunity to talk with you. Again, tremendous follow if you want to jump out there and find someone that's not only relevant, that you can listen to and will impart into you good energy, sound advice, and something that's going to make you think and be motivated to elevate. Because again, keep in mind, it's all about growth. Again, Aishia, thank you very much for joining us here on Relationship Unscripted. This is Coach Ken. Stay tuned for our next podcast, and we'll let you know what that's going to be here shortly.
Ain't no lies being told here today. It's Relationship Unscripted with that dude, Coach Ken.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To catch all the latest from Relationship Unscripted, you can follow us on Instagram. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.
Play no games, tell no lies. It's Relationship Unscripted with your host, that dude, Coach Ken.